Ladies and gentlemen, let's start with the truth we often ignore. Loving someone who doesn't fully love you back hurts. It drains you, leaves you questioning your worth, and most dangerously, it keeps you from fully showing up for yourself. We've all been there, haven't we? Trying to love someone who is only half in, only halfway present, only halfway committed, and we stay thinking, maybe if I give more, they'll give me the love I deserve. But here's the thing, half love is not love. It's a shadow of it. Love, real love, is full. It's deep. It's not a game of give and take where one person gives all and the other barely gives a fraction in return. Love is about wholeness. It's about being seen for who you truly are without the need to hide or withhold pieces of yourself. It's about showing up with everything you have and having someone do the same. Whole love means mutual vulnerability, mutual trust, and mutual respect. But what happens when we settle for less? What happens when we give pieces of ourselves to someone who isn't willing to give themselves fully in return? We pay a price, a heavy price. Half love isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a constant ache, a quiet, creeping sense of not being enough. It makes us doubt our worth. We start asking ourselves, am I asking for too much? But here's the truth, you're not asking for too much. You're asking for what you deserve, a love that is free, not conditional. A love that is whole, not fractured. So why do we settle for half love? Why do we convince ourselves that being loved just enough is enough? It's fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being worthy, fear of never finding a love that is truly fulfilling. We think that if we give more, show more, do more, they will see us for all that we are, and in return, they will love us back completely. But that's not how love works, and settling for half love doesn't just hurt us, it teaches us to settle for less than we are worth. Here's the real danger. The more we settle, the more we chip away at our own self-worth. We start to believe that half love is all we deserve. We forget that we are deserving of someone who sees us for who we truly are and is willing to love us without hesitation. The longer we stay in relationships that aren't whole, the more we lose sight of the fact that we are enough, just as we are. Recognizing half love in your own life isn't easy. We often make excuses for the other person. They're just busy, they're going through a lot, they don't express love the way I do, but deep down, you know the truth. You know when someone isn't all in, and the hardest part is admitting it, admitting that you are worth more. But once you see the pattern, once you recognize that you are not meant to be in a relationship that asks you to give more than you receive, that's when the magic happens. That's when you can start reclaiming the fullness of love that you deserve. There is power in whole love. True love isn't about the grand gestures. It's about the quiet moments where both people feel seen, heard, and valued. It's the kind of love that builds you up, not tears you down. It's the kind of love that says, I see you and I choose you, not just when it's easy, but always. That's the love worth waiting for. That's the love worth building. So here's my challenge to you tonight. Do not settle for half love. Do not settle for anything less than the fullness of what you deserve. Love yourself fully, unapologetically, and demand that your relationships reflect the value you place on yourself. Surround yourself with people who give as much as they take, who show up for you the way you show up for them. We've all been there, haven't we? In a relationship where you give everything, pour your heart out, and yet it never feels like enough. You show up fully with all your love and your hope, but somehow the person you're giving it to only meets you halfway. It's like you're giving them all of you and they're only offering a fraction in return. And in the quiet moments of that disconnect, you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? Why am I not enough? It's a dangerous place to be. The kind of danger that creeps in slowly, silently, until one day you look in the mirror and barely recognize yourself. It's the kind of danger that chips away at your self-worth, telling you that if only you could give more, be more, love more, you might finally earn the love you crave. But the truth is, half love isn't love at all. It's a lie. And it's a lie that we often choose to believe because the fear of being alone feels scarier than the pain of being incomplete. You see, when we love someone who isn't fully capable of loving us back, we start to lose pieces of ourselves. We don't even realize that at first it happens little by little. We stop trusting ourselves, stop trusting our own needs, and stop believing that we deserve to be loved in the way we truly need. And over time, that leaves us empty. We think we're giving our best, and yet we're receiving only scraps, like we're constantly begging for something more, something better, but never quite getting it. What makes this so painful is that we convince ourselves it's our fault. Maybe they're just busy, or maybe they show love in different ways, or maybe they just haven't realized what they're missing. We wait. We wait for them to see us. We wait for them to step up, to match our energy, to match our love. But the truth is, no amount of waiting will ever change the fact that if someone is only giving you half of themselves, it's never going to be enough. And that's where the danger lies when we allow ourselves to believe that half love is all we deserve. We all want to feel loved, we all want to be chosen, but the tragedy is many of us have been taught that we must settle for less than what we are worthy of. We justify staying in relationships that don't serve us because the fear of being alone, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough is too overwhelming. And so we stay in the half love, hoping that one day it will turn into something more. But it won't. And the longer we stay, the more we lose sight of the whole love that we are truly meant to experience. Half love leaves us in a constant state of yearning. And that yearning over time becomes exhaustion. You begin to wonder if love is supposed to feel like this, like you're constantly running after someone who isn't running alongside you. It's like you're always waiting, always hoping, but never really receiving. And when we settle into that space, we stop asking for more. We stop believing that we deserve to be fully seen, fully valued, and fully loved. We start to believe that love has to be hard, has to be a struggle, has to be something we fight for rather than something that flows naturally. But that's not love, that's sacrifice, and no one should have to sacrifice their whole self just to be loved. But here's the truth: you are worthy of more. You are worthy of love that doesn't make you question your worth. You are worthy of a love that doesn't leave you feeling incomplete or second-guessing yourself. You deserve the kind of love that is all in, not halfway. A love that is reciprocated, a love that uplifts and nourishes, not one that drains and diminishes. The danger of half love is that it makes us forget that. And it makes us believe that the love we're getting is all we'll ever get. And that's simply not true. Whole love is the kind of love that doesn't ask you to hide pieces of yourself. It's not a love that expects you to shrink or dim your light in order to fit into someone else's idea of what you should be. It's a love that sees you not just the parts of you that are easy to love, but all of you, even the messy, imperfect, vulnerable parts. Whole love is unconditional. It is a love that doesn't come with conditions or expectations that weigh you down, but rather one that allows you to stand tall, proud of who you are, because you know that the person who loves you is doing so for the entirety of your being, not just the version of yourself that's easiest to love. This kind of love creates a space where you can show up as your true self, where there's no need to apologize for your quirks, your dreams, your past, or your scars. It's the love that lets you be both strong and soft, confident and uncertain, vulnerable and resilient. Whole love embraces your humanity. It recognizes that you're not perfect and it loves you anyway. It's a love that doesn't try to fix you, but instead stands beside you and says, I'm here, no matter what. It gives you the freedom to grow, to change, to become more of who you're meant to be, without the fear of losing the love that's holding you. Whole love doesn't require you to earn it. It's not transactional. It's not given only when you meet someone's expectations or when you bend yourself into a shape that fits their needs. Instead, it's freely given and freely received, a constant flow of connection and trust. There's no playing games, no wondering where you stand, because the foundation is built on mutual respect, honesty, and understanding. Whole love is a love that doesn't keep score. It's not about measuring who gave more or who sacrificed more. It's about both people showing up authentically for each other day in and day out. This is the kind of love that allows us to be vulnerable without the fear of rejection. In whole love, vulnerability isn't seen as a weakness, it's seen as a strength. It's in that rawness, that openness, that the deepest connections are made. Whole love asks us to trust not only the other person, but ourselves, to trust that we are worthy of such a love and that we have the strength to show up in all of our vulnerability and still be held, still be valued. And in return, we are able to. Half love comes at a steep price, and it's a price we often don't recognize until we've already paid it. At first, it doesn't seem so bad. It's easy to convince ourselves that we can make do with the scraps we're given, that we can be okay with less. We tell ourselves that it's just a phase, or that we can change things with time, or that if we love hard enough, the other person will eventually meet us halfway. But what starts as a subtle imbalance quickly builds into something more dangerous, something that slowly eats away at who we are. The cost of half love is emotional exhaustion. You find yourself constantly giving, constantly trying to bridge the gap between the love you're offering and the love you're receiving. You bend over backward, hoping to meet their needs, hoping to earn their affection, hoping to feel seen. But the more you give, the more you find yourself drained, running on empty. It's as if you're pouring from a cup that's never quite full. You start to question why it never feels like enough. Why do they not see the effort, the love, the vulnerability you're putting in? The truth is, when you give and get nothing in return, you eventually run out of energy. The spark that once fueled you starts to flicker out, leaving only the quiet hum of fatigue. But the cost goes deeper than just exhaustion. There's the quiet erosion of self-worth. When you constantly find yourself in a relationship where love is not returned in full measure, you start to wonder if you're worth loving at all. You convince yourself that maybe it's your fault that you're not lovable enough or good enough or worthy enough of being loved completely. Over time, these thoughts settle deep inside you, poisoning your sense of who you are. Half love doesn't just make you question the other person, it makes you question your own value. And as you begin to shrink yourself to fit the love they're offering, you lose sight of your own boundaries, your own needs, your own sense of self. You forget that you deserve more than crumbs. You forget that you are not a consolation prize, that you are worthy of a love that is whole, not fragmented. The cost of half love also shows up in how we start to relate to ourselves and to the world. We become conditioned to believe that love is something to chase, something to earn, something to settle for. We convince ourselves that this is all we deserve, and we stop demanding the kind of love that nurtures us, that lifts us up, that helps us grow. We stop expecting love to be unconditional. Instead, we start to see it as a reward for good behavior, or as something we can only receive if we're perfect, or if we give in ways that are unsustainable. The longer we accept half love, the less we believe in the possibility of something better, something fuller. And then there's the cost of emotional numbness. Half love doesn't only make you feel empty, it can also make you feel like you're slowly. The danger of settling is that it can feel comfortable at first. At least it seems comfortable. It's the choice we make when we convince ourselves that this is as good as it gets, that the love we're receiving is the best we can hope for, or that the person we're with is the best we deserve. We tell ourselves that we're being realistic, that we're making peace with what we have, but deep down we know something is missing. We know we're settling for less than what we truly deserve, and we make excuses to silence that inner voice. When we settle, we trade our dreams for comfort, our hopes for security, our worth for the fear of being alone. We tell ourselves that being with someone, anyone, is better than being by ourselves. We fear the emptiness of solitude more than the slow, quiet ache of unfulfilled love. But what we don't realize is that by settling for a relationship that isn't whole, we're not just choosing to stay in a situation that doesn't serve us, we're choosing to settle for less than the love we're worthy of. We're accepting a fraction of what we deserve because the alternative feels too overwhelming. The alternative is facing the truth that we deserve more and that we have the strength to walk away from relationships that don't nurture us. The danger of settling is that it slowly steals away our power. When we stay in a relationship that isn't right, we stop trusting ourselves. We stop listening to our own needs, our own desires, our own worth. We start to ignore the red flags and pretend that everything is fine, even when we know deep down that it's not. We tell ourselves that it's not the right time to make a change, that things will get better, or that we should be happy with what we have. But the longer we settle, the more we lose touch with the very essence of who we are. Our dreams, our passions, our sense of possibility fade into the background, while we keep trying to make something work that was never meant to be. Settling makes us forget our own worth. It convinces us that we don't deserve to have our needs met, that we don't deserve to be loved in the way we truly want. It's also dangerous because settling doesn't just affect us, it impacts how we see love, how we see relationships, and how we see ourselves. We begin to believe that love is about sacrifice, that it's about giving up parts of ourselves in order to make the other person happy. We start to think that we need to bend, to change, to twist ourselves into a version that is more acceptable, more tolerable, more fitting. But that's not love, that's self-neglect. True love is about being seen, understood, and celebrated for who you are, not for what you're willing to compromise or sacrifice. Settling creates a narrative that love is something we should chase, that we need to earn, that we have to prove ourselves worthy of. But love, real love, doesn't work that way. It's not about proving, it's about being. When we accept half love, we don't just lose pieces of our heart, we begin to lose pieces of ourselves. It happens quietly at first, almost imperceptibly. At first, you might think it's just a temporary thing or that you're imagining it. You may tell yourself that if you give a little more, if you try a little harder, things will shift. But each time you give without receiving, each time you lower your standards or sacrifice a little more of yourself, you begin to chip away at your sense of who you are. Over time, you stop asking for what you truly need, and you start to believe that what you're getting is all you deserve. You accept the crumbs instead of the full meal, and you don't even realize that your worth is being eroded piece by piece. The impact on self-worth is profound because it makes us question the very foundation of who we are. We begin to internalize the idea that we are not enough, that the love we're getting reflects what we deserve, and that we aren't worthy of more. This is one of the cruelest tricks that half-love plays on us. It convinces us that we are defined by how others love us. We start to believe that the amount of love we receive is a reflection of our value. So when the love we receive is inconsistent or shallow or conditional, we begin to wonder, what's wrong with me? Why am I not worth more? But the truth is, half love isn't about you, it's about the other person and their inability or unwillingness to give you what you need. It's about their limitations, their fears, and their struggles, not about your worth. Yet, when we keep accepting love that is less than what we deserve, we lose sight of this truth. We forget that our worth is inherent, not conditional. We forget that we are whole, we are worthy, and we are deserving of love that is abundant, full, and reciprocal. And as our sense of self-worth erodes, we become more and more afraid to stand up for what we need. We become afraid to ask for love that's real because we've convinced ourselves that we're not deserving of it. We tell ourselves that we're asking for too much or that we're being unreasonable. We become silent in our own lives, afraid that speaking up will only push the other person further away. But in truth, when we stay silent about our needs, when we deny ourselves the right to be loved fully, we are only allowing that erosion to continue. The more we settle, the less we believe we are worthy of anything better, and the deeper the hole of self-doubt grows. This cycle isn't just painful, it's self-sustaining. The more we accept less than ideal love, the more we tell ourselves we aren't worthy of the kind of love that nourishes, heals, and builds us up. The more we stay in relationships where we're not fully seen, fully heard, or fully loved, the more we reinforce the false belief that love is something we need to earn, something that depends on our ability to give, to sacrifice, to please. But that's not love, that's something else. That's a transaction, not a connection. The damage to our self-worth doesn't just come from how we're treated by others, it also comes from how we treat ourselves. When we accept less than we deserve, we are teaching ourselves that we are not worthy of the very love we seek. We stop valuing our own needs, our own desires, our own dreams. We start to believe that being loved means being small or being quiet or being perfect, and in doing so, we lose sight of our true selves, the beautiful, messy, unique, powerful individuals that we were always meant to be. When we stop believing in our own worth, we stop standing up for our needs, and we stop demanding the love that is rightfully ours. But here's the thing, your worth is not defined by how much someone else loves you. It's defined by who you are, by the courage it takes to show up authentically in this world, by the beauty in your heart and the kindness in your soul. You are worthy, not because of how others see you, but because you exist. You are worthy of being loved fully, of being loved without fear, without hesitation, without strings attached. The moment you realize it is the moment your entire life can shift. You start to make choices based on what you truly deserve, and you begin to value yourself in a way that the world cannot take away. Half love doesn't just hurt us, it teaches us to doubt ourselves, to accept less, and to forget our own worth. But when we wake up to our own value, when we stand tall and claim the love we deserve, that's when we start living a life that's not only more fulfilling, but more whole. And that's the life we were always meant to live. Recognizing half love in relationships can be one of the most difficult things to do, especially when we've invested so much of ourselves in them. At first, it's subtle, like a soft whisper in the back of your mind that says, "This doesn't feel right." But you push it aside because you don't want to face it. You don't want to acknowledge the signs because it's easier to believe that love should be hard, or that love is something that takes time to grow. But the truth is, love shouldn't feel like a constant uphill battle, and you shouldn't have to convince someone to meet you halfway. If you find yourself always making excuses, constantly second-guessing your feelings, or waiting for the other person to give you what you need, it's time to stop and really look at what's happening. Half love shows up in relationships in so many ways. It might show up as inconsistency. One day they're present, loving, and attentive, and the next they're distant, aloof, or emotionally unavailable. When you're only getting love on their terms, when they choose when to show up and when to pull away, that's not love. That's a transaction. A healthy relationship is built on the foundation of mutual care, mutual effort, and mutual respect. If you find yourself always trying to figure out where you stand, never really knowing where the other person's heart is, that's a clear sign that something is off. Half love might also show up in how they treat your needs, or worse, ignore them entirely. Love isn't about just receiving, it's about giving and receiving equally. When you are constantly giving and making sacrifices but never feeling like your needs are being met, that's not love, it's martyrdom. Love is not supposed to feel like you're the only. We'll ever get the love we truly deserve. But the reality is you are worthy of more. You are worthy of a love that isn't a guessing game, a love that shows up consistently, wholeheartedly, without hesitation. Recognizing half love is the first step to reclaiming your power and your worth. It's about acknowledging that you deserve a love that nourishes you, that makes you feel whole, not one that constantly leaves you feeling empty. The moment you realize that half love is not enough, you give yourself permission to step into your truth. You give yourself the grace to walk away from relationships that drain you and settle for nothing less than the love you are truly worthy of. Whole love is out there. And when you choose to stop settling, when you choose to show up fully for yourself, you make space for the kind of love that fills you up, that sees you, that holds you with the same devotion and care you give to others. Remember, you are not here to be anyone's second choice or a consolation prize. You are here to be loved fully and completely, just as you are. And when you stop settling for less, you will discover that the love you truly deserve was always waiting for you within you and around you.